We're going into the next story. And this one is about Cornel West, and it's about how the Democratic Party does not have this in the bag. I'm going to show you recent poll numbers from Nate Silver and his concerns along with this story as well, but they don't have it in the bag. Listen to this from Chuck Todd here. Shout out to Case Study QB. Listen to this quick clip, and then we're going to get into that interview from Cornel West. I'm going to show you they don't have this in the bag.
Kamala Harris tells us to deal with Cornel West, who I think takes from her. Jill Stein takes from her. Kennedy takes from him, and anywhere he's on the ballot is harmful to Trump.
Our chief political analyst, Chuck Todd.
See? All right. So you heard what Chuck Todd said, but you continue to hear from other people like DNC chair Jamie Harrison that people like Jill Stein aren't serious, or these people don't matter. These third-party candidates don't matter. Well, if that's the case and they don't matter, then why are they so focused on them being a part of the race? Why are they removing them from the ballot? Why, during this discussion here with Laura Coates and Cornel West, why is Laura trying to get him to drop out of the race? Listen to this.
Look, don't call it a comeback, but look who's back on the ballot. RFK Jr. The Wisconsin State Election Commission today rejecting Kennedy's request to withdraw after he suspended his campaign. Their ruling, once a candidate files nomination papers, they're on the ballot, quote, except in case of death. Now, another third-party candidate who can stay on the Wisconsin ballot, Cornel West. He's one of 3 third-party candidates now still in the race, and it's the first time that West has qualified for the ballot in a swing state. It caps a string of recent ballot victories for Dr. West. But sometimes elections can create some pretty strange bedfellows. Democrats have backed some of the ballot challenges against West, and it appears that the left wing, West has an ally in his corner, the Republican Party. Reports suggest that GOP operatives are aiding in West's quest to get on the ballot. Why? Well, West could possibly peel away voters from Harris. And in an election that could be decided on the margins, every single vote matters. But how they're doing it? Perhaps raising some eyebrows in Arizona, where West did not qualify. One voter told the Associated Press she didn't know people visiting her home to collect her signatures were Republican-aligned operatives, adding her signature was, quote, forged. Now, independent presidential candidate Cornel West joins me now, and he certainly has taken issue with the association of those who have done the latter of which we speak. Dr. West, good evening. I'm glad that you are here because I would love for you to address some of the things that are being said. In particular, Dr. West, you're being criticized as somehow a spoiler for Democrats specifically, in part because you have received Republican support to get on the ballot. What is your reaction to the criticism, and who do you think your supporters will ultimately vote for if you yourself were not on the ballot?
Now, let's all remember something. It has been quite a while since CNN has had Dr. West on. Remember when he first announced, he was on CNN, I think twice, when he first announced Democracy Now! As well. Fox News has had him on a couple of times, but it's been quite a while since he's been back on CNN. And all this time they say, oh, he's not really polling anything. It doesn't really matter. But then he got on the ballot in Wisconsin and Michigan. The Democrats fought to take him off the ballot in Wisconsin and Michigan, but from what I understand, he was able to get back on that ballot in Michigan. Same thing with Jill Stein, back on the ballot in Michigan and Wisconsin. So why are they bringing Dr. West on now again? Listen to this conversation.
Well, appreciate the question. I always enjoy to be in conversation with you. And your brilliance is undeniable, my dear sister. And it's always a blessing to talk
compliment
with you.
Coming from the likes of you. Thank you so much.
No, I'm just, my campaign's about truth, justice, and love. Truth about everything, and justice for everybody, and love across the board. But one, we have to recognize that we have such a corrupt system. It's just driven by big money, the billions of dollars that both major parties are going to have access to. And then the arbitrary power to just do anything. And all you have to do is look at the plight of my precious Yahoo 3, who have been so thoroughly mistreated, unjustly treated by arbitrary power of the government, which means what? Which means then that someone like myself, hardworking volunteers at work, breaking their necks and then being so viciously attacked by especially the Democratic Party, and then we go to look for lawyers, it's almost impossible to find a lawyer. You can find a libertarian lawyer that has certain Republican associations, but concerned about each person voting, and that's very important. We just had Brother Joseph of the Socialist Equality Party. He had to speak strongly on our behalf, even the differences that he recognized that we have. We have a system that is so undemocratic that both parties have very little interest in democracy in the end, which is not to say they're identical, but in the end, they'll do anything to win. And some of us trying to hold out for some kind of integrity and honesty. And yes, we could be manipulated, but I've been quite explicit. I don't want any Trump gangster spies, operative infiltrators. And at the same time, the Democrats trying to crush us like cockroaches, but we rise. We're still on the move and on a variety of different ballots.
Why?
So I was very surprised that CNN allowed Dr. West to come on and say that the Democrats took him off the ballot, because they've had Jill Stein on, I believe, once earlier when she announced she was running. But, you know, they really don't like Jill because they still blame her for the reason why Hillary Clinton lost, even though Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. So I was surprised they allowed him to come on and criticize the Democratic Party the way that he did about what they did to him in reference to the ballot access. And there's more that he's going to say in this interview as well. But you're going to start to hear some type of desperation here from Laura a little bit. Like, well, what would it take? What would it take for you to just drop out and give some support to Kamala?
Why is it that you think Democrats, and especially, as he said, lawyers in particular, are not coming to your aid in order to support your efforts to get on the ballot? Do you think that it is somehow a suggestion that you indeed are a threat to the Democratic ticket?
Well, anytime the truth is a threat to any set of lies and crimes. When I talk about Democratic Party, Sister Harris being genocide denier, genocide enabler, not talking about poverty, not talking about mass incarceration, not a word about reparations, not talking about wealth inequality, but the opportunity society, then just those words constitute a certain kind of threat, it seems to me. But of course, at the same time, we have to be very honest and recognize that the Democratic Party has had so many different forms of rot that are operative. And it poses itself as a major opposition to the fascism of Trump. And it's sad to see, you know, Brother Kennedy has a right to be wrong, but he's siding with fascists. It's immoral. But if the only response to fascism with all of its lies and crimes is going to be more lies and crimes, then that's not a genuine anti-fascism. You're just postponing it. You're just putting it off. And if America doesn't have the capacity to provide a genuine response, then what are we talking about? We're headed toward fascism. We've got to be able to tell the truth about it.
I love this one here, Siesta in the Sun. I think that's the last time Dr. West will be on CNN. Yeah, he reveals quite a bit here.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dr. West. Do you take issue, or are you concerned at all about the Republicans who may be supporting your efforts to remain on the ballot, given some believe it's because they are intending for you to detract from the Democratic ticket, which obviously every candidate must earn their right towards that 270. Right. But do you take issue with the intimation that you are being used in that fashion?
Wrong question, Laura. Wrong question, Laura. Laura, your question should be, do you have issue or take issue with the Democratic Party, which you were once a part of during the Bernie Sanders campaigns, actively removing you off the ballot? That should be what you're focused on there, Laura. But Laura can't focus on that because she's working for CNN. She really can't be throwing them under the bus like that if she wants to stay in that seat. That's how that works. But wrong question, Laura. Think about this for a second. In this crazy town, the Republicans are trying to help the third party candidates stay on the ballot The Democratic Party is actively or has been actively removing Dr. West and Jill Stein off the ballot. Now, they've been beating these back. They've been beat, like Jill is used to this. You know, she didn't do this before, so she know what it takes, what's going to cost to get back on. So they did it in Wisconsin. She got right back on. They tried to do it in Michigan. She got right back on. Like, they know how to beat this, right? Plus, Jill's a part of the Green Party. Dr. West running as an independent, like he just told her, it's hard for him to find a lawyer that is a Democrat or a liberal lawyer that's not a Republican lawyer, because obviously the Democrats' attorneys are not going to want to help him stay on the ballot. Does everybody understand that? So Laura here is more focused on the fact that somebody's trying to help him stay on the ballot instead of being focused on the fact that the Democratic Party, which complains about the need for democracy, is actively being undemocratic.
No, I don't think it's a matter of being used. It's a matter of presenting the strongest case. And I come out of legacy, Martin King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Rabbi Heschel, Edward Zahid, Dorothy Day. I'm trying to keep that legacy alive in the context of electoral politics and tell the truth about American imperial policies, not just in the Middle East, but around the world, about predatory capitalist processes and legacies of white supremacy still operating that you don't hear too much in the Democratic Party these days. Now you got a black sister running, but you don't get serious talk about black people's situation, plight, and predicament, how that relates to issues of poverty and issues of class and issues.
Uh-oh. Let's hear that part again. He said you have a black sister running, but...
No, I don't think it's a matter of being used. It's a matter of presenting the strongest case. And I come out of legacy, Martin King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Rabbi Heschel, Edward Zahid, Dorothy Day. I'm trying to keep that legacy alive in the context of electoral politics and tell the truth about American imperial policies, not just in the Middle East, but around the world, about predatory capitalist processes and legacies of white supremacy still operating that you don't hear too much in the Democratic Party these days. Now you got a black sister running, but you don't get serious talk about black people's situation, plight, and predicament, how that relates to issues of poverty and issues of class and issues of socioeconomic.
So that right there is a jab towards Kamala Harris. That's why I'm surprised this was on CNN, because what he did was he called out the fact of this focus on her identity, that, oh, look, there's someone with a black face. And I say black face because she's not Black American. There's someone with a black face that is running. But at the same time, she has no agenda for Black Americans. She has no agenda for minority groups, period, except for that whole first generation home buyer thing, which we got into all of that the other time. We got into all that. I told you who that also includes. The woman who told you she wouldn't do anything specifically for Black people. Right? So we had this with Barack Obama. Yeah, there was someone with a black face that was running, but he didn't have a black agenda either. Barack Obama didn't push for any type of reparations. Barack Obama didn't push for any type of criminal justice reform the way he could have and should have, considering that BLM and Ferguson riots happened under his administration. So you can't keep falling for the okie doke. And there's a lot of people sitting back and they're like, oh, but we could have the first, woman of color, first woman, Black woman, da 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 da. Let me tell you something, because I've known about Kamala for quite some time. Kamala Harris will do something for women of color before she does something for Black women. What do I mean by that? Right? Because when you say women of color, that includes a lot of different people. She'll do something for that group as a whole before she would do something specifically for Black people. Everybody really needs to understand that. That's one thing I can tell you she's not lying about. I don't think she was lying when she said that she wasn't going to do anything specifically for you.
Position along with the white supremacy, meaning what? Meaning, in fact, that it is very difficult to keep this legacy alive, given the fact that there's not a lot of space in American society and culture for serious talk about painful truths, for serious talk about justice for poor and working people, and serious talk about love. Brothers, sisters, siblings, the humanity in each and every one of us, that's being pushed to the margins. That's the primary thing that's generating the fascist mean-spiritedness on the one hand and the militarism on the other. When I hear my dear sister Harris say, America is the greatest story ever told, and I think it's Shiloh Baptist Church to say, I thought it was Jesus. Oh, so now we got the cross under the flag. Now we got God under the nation state. You can be patriotic, but not ever think that the nation state is over something grander like truth and love and justice. No, not at all. The greatest privilege is being in America.
I hear your
point.
point.
The greatest privilege is being loved and giving love, to love and be loved. Let's not get things confused in this frenzy, in this talk about joviality as if it's joy. I'm talking about a deep joy that comes out of grief, that comes out of struggle. That's what the blues is fundamentally about.
Well, let me sing my blues for a second and ask you this pointedly, Dr. West, and just really.
When that comment where he said that Kamala said that the greatest story in history or whatever is America, it reminds me of that character from the movie Head of State with Chris Rock, the guy that he was running against. And he said, God bless America and no place else. That's what it reminds me of.
Quick, given what you think is lacking from the Harris campaign, should you not continue with your own candidacy? Would you, in any respect, be open to working with that campaign or endorsing the Harris campaign? Yes or no?
No, I would never sell my precious Palestinians down the river, and I'd never have poor people pushed to the side in order to jump on the bandwagon of the Democratic Party. And of course, unlike Kennedy, never even think about the gangster Trump. No, we are trying to be true to our calling, and we are proceeding to November 5th.
Dr. Cornel West, not a yes or no, but thorough nonetheless. Thank you. I hope the voters certainly understand your point.
It's really no, I'm going to the end. I'm sorry about that.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
I'm not
I hear
up.
you.
I'm not
I understand. Dr. West, thank you so much.
So he said, I would never sell my Palestinian brothers and sisters down the river, which obviously, again, that's a dig to Kamala Harris because she is. You heard her say it herself. You ain't got to hear from me. You heard her say it yourself tonight. She let you know, right? Now, why did they bring Cornel West on again on CNN? If they claim that it's his going nowhere or whatever, why are they still bringing him on? Let me show you why. New polls came out. This is from Nate Silver. Take a look at this and we'll get into what Nate actually said. This is just a snapshot, but I'll show you what he actually said. Forecast chance of winning, Nate Silver. This is today. Georgia it says Trump 63%, Harris 37%. Again, this is Nate Silver forecast. Arizona, he predicts Trump 60%, Harris 40%. Pennsylvania, Trump 52%, Harris 48%. Nevada, Trump 52%, Harris 48%. Wisconsin, Harris 53%, Trump 47%, and Michigan 58% for Kamala, 42% for Trump. Now, Brittany Ray, she said, Nate said he would have to change the odds if after the convention she didn't come out plus 14 like Obama, and she did not. So yeah, she did get a bump in the polls after the DNC, which is expected. Just like it was expected that Trump would get a bump in the polls after the RNC, right? Typical. However, Nate Silver firmly believes that in order for Kamala Harris to be a shoo-in to win the Electoral College, she would need to get a plus 14 like Obama did. She did not. This is what's happening now. This is from Nate Silver. Follow him if you can. Weird update today. Harris ticked up slightly in our national polling average, but lost ground in our forecast and is now less than 50% versus Trump. So this is important to hear. I want to highlight what's happening in Pennsylvania. He said she has another problem. It's been a while since we've seen a poll showing Harris leading in Pennsylvania. A high quality poll showing Harris ahead of Pennsylvania would make a big difference right now. And right now, this is what it shows you. Again, This most recent one from Emerson, this is August 25th through August 28th. 28th was yesterday. Emerson College, it now shows Kamala even with Donald Trump, 49-49 even, 1.37 influence. She's not getting more of a bump in Pennsylvania. For whatever reason, Trump got a bump. Kamala got a bump as we expected with the DNC because of the convention, but Donald Trump also got a bump, right? So this could be the start of the effects of RFK Jr. endorsing Donald Trump. I told you it would probably be like a week or two before we see that full effect. Also, the Tulsi Gabbard effect with her jumping in to that as well. I think I have to sign in here, don't I? I do have to sign in here. Damn you, Nate. Like, hello. I'm already subscribed. Like, didn't we have this conversation already? I always got to do this. Like, why you may do this? Okay, here we go. Couple things I just want to point out from his recent Substack here. Pennsylvania may be a problem for Kamala Harris. And I want to talk about the Electoral College because, once again, I'm going to teach people how to do math on this damn show. Because I'm seeing a lot of people say some things to me that's very clear that we need to focus more on civics and math on this show. Peep this. Harris is ahead 3.8 points in our national poll tracker, up from 2.3 points the day before the Democratic convention began, which does suggest some sort of convention bounce. However, she's fallen to a 47.3% chance of winning the Electoral College versus 52.4% for Donald Trump. Now, remember, Nate Silver said if she didn't get the plus 14 coming out of that convention like Obama, he was going to have to make adjustments with his predictions. So something that I had mentioned earlier on that I think could happen with Kamala Harris is that, again, like Hillary, she could win the popular vote, but lose the Electoral College. And at the end of the day, in order to win, you have to win the Electoral College. So this is why I continue to focus a lot on what do the polls say in the swing states? Because just because it says that she's winning a national poll, that doesn't mean she's going to win the Electoral College. Okay? So we got to go back to doing math and looking at how this actually works. And there was another thing that he put here. So that's the chart where I showed you about the Pennsylvania data right now coming out of that Emerson College poll. And then I also want to show you this as well. It says right here, but for now, we show a 17% chance that Kamala Harris wins the popular vote, but not the Electoral College, a big concern for her campaign all along. If she won the popular vote nationally between 1 and 2 points, for instance, the model estimates that she'd still be a 70/30 underdog in the Electoral College. Now, that still doesn't mean that she can't win, but it's not easy. It's not going to be easy as the media is making you think. When you see these polls, sometimes I want you to remember, sometimes people, less than 500 people are even polled in these polls. So just keep that in mind. Polls are supposed to inspire you. If you see that Kamala's doing good in some polls, that may encourage you. If you weren't thinking about voting, that may make you think, okay, well, maybe I do want to come out. Or it could make you go in the other direction. Depends on how you feel. If you see that she's doing poorly in the polls, that may make some people less willing to come out because they're like, oh, what's the point? But it might encourage others to come out. The problem that Kamala runs into is the fact that she has not been on the campaign trail long and she doesn't have that much time. Joe Biden just suspended his campaign. It's almost around the 40-day mark when Kamala announced. So November is just around the corner. So she really does not have as much time as like a Barack Obama did when he was running for president. But I want to show you a different poll, because this right here, holding Dems accountable. Morality aside, why is Kamala flagrantly ignoring the will of 8 in 10 of her own voters? Look at this poll here. CBS News poll. Nearly 8 in 10 Democrats say the U.S. should not send weapons to Israel. 77% versus 23%. And you heard what Kamala said in the interview with Dana Bash. She's not going to stop sending weapons to Israel. That's another concern. There's also this. Look what's back on campus. The protests are back on campus.
Israel bombs, you have been paid. Israel bombs, you have been paid. How many kids have you killed today? How many kids have you killed today? Israel bombs, you have been paid. Israel bombs, you have been paid. How many kids have you killed today? How many kids have you killed today? Israel bombs, you have been paid. Israel bombs, you have been paid. How many kids have you killed today? How many kids have you killed today?
So the campus protests, as predicted, are back. That was the University of Michigan. Some campuses are already starting to make more rules so that the students can't protest in the way that they could before, etc. But this is a problem for Kamala Harris, and it's not just Gaza, but the interview that she had with Dana Bash, the response that she gave about the economy. We're just going to continue the same thing that we did under Biden. I don't think that's going to win a lot of people over. I don't think that's what people want to hear right now, especially those that are struggling financially. But what would I know? I'm just an everyday person that talks to people out on the street, unlike Kamala. So the point that I'm trying to make with that interview with Cornel West and these polls that I just showed you in the forecast, Kamala Harris campaign does not have it in the bag, you guys. And I know corporate media is making it sound like they do, but they actually don't. They're nervous. They're concerned. That's why they're bringing Cornel West on CNN. That's why they're still trying to get people off the ballot that are not obviously, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. They don't have this in the bag. Now, that being said, I want to show you a different poll, which is more than 500 people. More than 500 people. And that's the poll that I did Tuesday night. So I posted it on Twitter right about here. Here we go. I polled my audience Tuesday night. Everyone needs to see this. If Kamala loses, what would be the main reason? Most voters said she wasn't a strong candidate. I know it's only 2,434 votes, but I think this says something. And Be Easy actually reminded me in the comments, and he said many of the polls they prop have less than 2,000 voters. So that's interesting to note. But again, when I polled you guys on Tuesday, if Kamala Harris loses, what would be the main reason? The number one reason, 42% of you said she wasn't a strong candidate. It wasn't the economy, which also included inflation. It wasn't the Trump, RFK, and Tulsi coalition that just happened. And it wasn't Gaza. Gaza came in second. But most of you said she wasn't a strong candidate. And then I go back to the interview that she had with Dana Bash, which again just shows you she couldn't sit by herself for her very first presidential interview with Dana Bash. She had to have Tim by her side. Not being a strong candidate. They don't have this in the bag, you guys. And I don't know if I believe some of these polls that they've been showing either.